I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
C'est bon. C'est bon.
We are recording this on Friday instead of Sunday.
Yeah.
Because you're leaving for France tomorrow.
Yeah, I should hopefully be almost there by Sunday.
How do you feel?
Oh, God. You know, I haven't been to a physical... I can't wait to get away from that terminology, but a physical event since Berlin 2020, so I forgot how stressful the week before a film festival is, in that, you know, a lot of smaller titles get screeners for. There's a great opportunity to, you know, get some coverage filed ahead of time and ready to go. And that plus working and watching and covering weekly releases and, you know, everything else with life. It's plus all of the things that are up in the air with this film festival as far as COVID testing, whose vaccinations are going to be accepted, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I'll be glad to be on the plane.
All right. So, to get started today... we should probably talk about Drag Race.
Drag aperitif.
Yeah, which seems like tradition now. So we still haven't finished Australia. I probably won't because I didn't like it. España, I probably won't pick back up again.
Okay, you say that now.
Well, but we did start Drag Race, All Stars 6. And we're 3 episodes in. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on All Stars Season 6?
You know, it seems a little less predictable than the last season of All Stars when, like, clearly and all throughout, it's like, oh, this is Shea Coulee's bag.
Sure.
And despite some, you know, what I think was very subconsciously racially charged melodrama from that season with India, what's-her-name, I think that... it's exciting that it's not so clear-cut this time. At the same time, it also seems pretty, you know, it's just heavily produced, and a lot of the assignments and taskings, you know, we've seen everything ad nauseam. I'm kind of hungry for something. I know they're doing this game within a game thing that has yet to be revealed, but, you know, there's some people that could go quickly.
I'm going to name off each of the 13 contestants, and you'll tell me, like, your initial
We already
thought.
did that. You already did that.
For All-Star 6?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. I need to start taking my ginkgo biloba. Well, then let me just name the 3 who've gone home. So the first person to go home is Serena Chacha. How did you feel about her going home?
Fine. Could have not been there at all. It would have been fine.
Someone has to go home first.
You know, I was, you know, you're always hoping, you know, she was a 21-year-old at the time, and you're always hoping to see some growth, and I think there has been, but also just not interesting, or maybe she should try something else.
Well, she is known, I think, nowadays for making wigs that she sells to drag queens.
And that was what her song was about.
Yeah, so I think she's made a career for herself. And she had mentioned she wanted to sort of be like she wants to create a business and a platform that's a hub for people to get drag. And I think that seems to make more sense maybe for her. Although, I don't know that I think her wigs or her looks are that great. But I don't know that her as a drag performer is probably the lane she should stay in. So good for her for having an alternate plan.
I mean, yeah.
And then so Jiggly went home next.
You know, the glow... yes, she might have looked tired, but I thought, you know, I think she looks great. She seems happy. I kind of wish she had stayed around for more than 2 episodes. I think it's unfortunate she went home so early.
I liked Jiggly in her first season. I thought she had a great personality. She's a hell of a dancer. Mm-hmm. And I thought seeing her now and after her transition and her weight loss, and it was lovely to see her. I would have liked to have seen more of her.
Yeah, same.
But she does have limitations.
Don't we all?
So I don't know that I think she shouldn't have gone home. But
I forget who she was up against. Was
Yada.
Oh yeah, I definitely don't want her to go home yet.
And then most recently, Silky Nutmeg, the Dr. Reverend Silky Nutmeg Ganache went home. How do you feel about that?
I felt bad for her, which we talked about after watching it, and yeah, I think I would have liked to see her stay around an episode or two more as compared to, say, Jan. And we can talk more about that too, but I like her. It was hard to see, because she's very gregarious, to put it mildly, on her season, and I saw an opportunity to steal the spotlight at every chance, and she did, and she was entertaining, and I think it was sad to hear the backlash she received, which I don't pay attention to any of all of that drama whatsoever. So my only revisitation of these queens is usually on Drag Race. So it's hard to see that she clearly felt like she had to not dumb herself down, but to dial back to such a degree that she was afraid to say anything. And I think that's the unfortunate reality of this drag race universe, is that people are also forced to toe the line.
I think Silky's a good example of someone, like a contestant on a reality show, who is encouraged to be over the top, whether it was directly from production or she had the wherewithal to understand that she might want to do whatever it takes to steal every moment, and what that can do in the long run, which is create like a negative association, which she talks about on the show, saying that there was a lot of backlash and she did lose bookings. So it's unfortunate to see her in All Stars almost like an abused dog, like afraid to do what she's used to because she doesn't want to get in trouble. But I think what that really demonstrates is how important it is to be authentic, and resign yourself in the fact that if your authentic self is not what people want, then those are the facts, America.
Yeah.
Like, we all we can do is our best, and if it's not good enough, then it is what it is. Like, I think that a lot of people who want fame and celebrity, they'll do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you might be selling your soul for pennies because you put yourself out here to, you said it nicely by calling her gregarious, but I thought she seemed like a damn clown. And
sometimes, sure.
Sometimes. And while I did enjoy her for the most part, I did find her grating. And I think, like, wow, you really put yourself out there in a way that is hard to back out of.
But I think what also people don't understand, and I remember was that season 11 when she was on, and I remember chatter about how people thought she was annoying or too much, and it's like, we also have to take a step back and realize that this is an overweight black femme queen, and this is the way that she has had to navigate the world to be heard, be seen, to command attention, and that she might have been egged on by producers to be, even to exaggerate on herself, if you will. But at the same time, we got to look at where people might be coming from and not just cut them off. To hear that, she had canceled gigs because of her performance on Drag Race. She was a little much, but she was also entertaining, and she always seemed like she was herself.
Agreed. But I also think, okay, so what if we were approached by, like, let's say, like, WoW Presents, and they say, we want to produce a show for our online platform where we do movie reviews, like 10-minute movie reviews, but they want us to be a little more flamboyant, a little more bitchy, which is not necessarily our personalities.
What would I say to that?
Right.
No.
I would say no as well.
Because I'm not an actor, and it would be immediately apparent that I'm being fake, and I don't feel good being fake, and I don't. To me, it's just too apparent.
Sure, but
if I'm being hired to play a part that's not associated with my name, well, that's something else. But if it's supposed to be me, it's going to be me.
But the point I was going to make is, I can see how that prospect is seductive to people.
Yeah.
Like if like I don't have any desire to be famous, I don't need money like that to
Right.
make myself seem like a clown. And I'm also older, so I don't, a lot of the things that people seek, I've either already had or I'm used to not having it, and I'm fine with it. So,
Right.
So I think like, okay, a 20-something who just wants attention and just wants money, and I can see how people can very easily go down that road. And I think watching a lot of these drag queens become so notable for like a 3-month period, and then it just goes away as soon as the season's over, because then we get the next season.
Yeah. I mean, it's by now we've gone so far into this zeitgeist. It's a machine. It's a machine, and you have to respect what it can do for you and not condemn it for what it can't. So
There, at this point, U.S. drag race queens, there are, 130,
Yeah.
140. And it's like, okay, of all of those, how many have really solidified themselves with like a strong career?
well, it's like the Real Housewives as well.
I mean, not many.
Right.
Well, but the thing is with the Real Housewives, the whole premise is that they were already, doing something
Sure.
before they were cast. But these queens, it's like, this is their platform. And it just, they better make their little money that first, 3 months after the show comes out or while the show's airing. And then, so 6 months total, I feel like that's their moment to get those $5,000 bookings.
Yeah.
But after that, it's like, back to reality. Anyway, this is not the Drag Race podcast.
Anyway, excellent lip sync with Laganja Estranja.
Laganja Estranja, who we already know is an amazing dancer,
Yeah.
really gave a truly impressive performance. And I don't want to talk bad about Trinity. I'm more concerned that Trinity doesn't look well.
She was supposed to be a vampire in her.
No, I know in her episode 3 look, but I'm saying in general, she doesn't look as healthy as I.
In her confessionals and as her boy self, I think she looks good. Just say what you will about her flipper, but I think she looks. I think it's in drag where she looks kind of severe.
Very few people know my dental journey. You do, obviously. It's been extreme and difficult, and there have been a lot of tangential things that have made it worse. But you would never know watching me on YouTube. Like,
Right.
my smile looks fine on video.
And lovely, yeah.
But but it's not, and there have been a lot of issues, and so I relate to having issues with my smile, and I just wonder like why Trinity doesn't do better.
Sure.
So that combined with her not looking the most healthy is a little concerning to me.
Sure. It might be a makeup thing.
I thought she looked better on her initial season than she has this season.
She carries with this kind of sadness about her. I think that which also doesn't help. But I don't know. Like there's also getting down to the nitty gritty. Nothing innately wrong.
No, but we've spent I think more than 10 minutes talking about this.
Oh, I didn't realize we had a.
No, we don't. But
okay.
I mean, Anyway.
But I want to say Laganja Estranja, who someone I found grading on her season, seemed really joyous and happy and glowing.
Oh, that's a good point. I feel like Laganja was, she's pre-Silky, and I feel like she also suffered from the same condition of, I think, being egged on or felt encouraged to be a clown.
Yeah.
But I agree, yeah. You were saying she looks happy.
Yeah, it's like, when's she coming back? I want to watch her.
And I really hope it's due to her transitioning as
Yeah.
well, because it's like she's, feels more comfortable in her skin. But yeah, she looked happy. She danced the hell out of that song. Okay, well, moving on. So you want to talk about some new projects. One of them is called One Fine Morning.
Oh, yes. So, Cannes is about to happen, and a lot of the films in competition have been in the can, pun intended, for a while. So at this festival, some of these competing auteurs and directors already have other projects that are starting, which is kind of rare because, they've had something finished for so long. So, One Fine Morning, Mia Hansen-Løve, whose Bergman Island is about to premiere at Cannes, has announced a new project on the books that will star Léa Seydoux, which that is a very exciting combination to me.
Oh, good. Next is a Tilda Swinton, Wes Anderson film.
And we're about to see both of them. The French Dispatch, starring Tilda, among many others, is about to premiere in competition at Cannes, and he has announced a new project with Tilda again, which how many times? 3. You haven't seen the Grand Budapest Hotel or the Moonlight film that I really liked. He said he's not willing to give any details about it, but it's supposed to shoot in Spain, I think, this fall. But obviously, I like Tilda more than Wes, but obviously he's somebody it feels like you have to watch his films.
All right. Something called Manodrome.
Yeah, so John Trengove, who has been to our house, he's in a relationship with Marco Dutra.
I wasn't here.
You weren't here.
So who knows what was going on while I was out of town. But anyway.
Some pizza and the movie. Anyhow, John Trengove, South African director, we forgot to lock the cat up.
The cat is making a special appearance.
Chittering. His 2017 debut, The Wound, which I saw at Sundance, starring Nakane Toure, South African musician. Excellent film if you haven't seen The Wound from 2017. Has announced a new project called Manodrome, set to star Riley Keough, Lisa Marie Presley's daughter.
From Zola.
Please go see Zola. Excellent. Jesse Eisenberg and Adrian Brody, something about an Uber driver getting involved in a toxic cult of masculinity. That sounds amazing. That is going into production this fall. Manodrome.
Okay. Lastly, something called Alpha Gang.
The Zellner brothers, David and Nathan Zellner, who did
Kathleen Zellner's kids? No
relation. Oh, God. I so want Sigourney Weaver to play Kathleen Zellner. When could...
That's something I would definitely... I would donate to the GoFundMe.
She couldn't... I mean, if putting this out there in the universe, somebody get can you imagine Sigourney Weaver as Kathleen Zellner?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyhow, the Zellner brothers, who directed many things, Kid Thing, with a voice appearance from the late Susan Tyrrell, and Kumiko, the treasure hunter, have a new project called Alpha Gang, science fiction thing. Charlotte Gainsbourg, Andrea Riseborough, and Sophia Boutella, among other cast members, announced. But those 3 ladies make me very excited for that.
Moving on, so films you watched that you didn't cover on the YouTube channel. There's only one, something called No Sudden Move.
Which I saw a press screening of No Sudden Move, a new Steven Soderbergh film, which was really good. I haven't had time to write about it. I wanted us to cover it because it came out in conjunction on HBO Max on July 1st. Just no time. And I haven't had time to watch anything else because I've been mired in screeners for Cannes. But No Sudden Move, it's a 1954 Detroit set, neo-noir, directed by Steven Soderbergh with... Ed Solomon wrote the script, Don Cheadle stars, Benicio del Toro, I'm trying to remember who plays the wife at this point because my brain is fried. Amy Seimetz. Anyhow, it's very much kind of how like Chinatown was about the LA's water issues. This is very much about the catalytic converter in the 1950s and about how the Big Four were suppressing technology for a new muffler system because they...
Are you sure it's the Big Four and not the Big Three?
Is it? I thought it was the Big Four, but...
What's the fourth one?
I don't know.
Ford, Chrysler...
Something with an S.
Dodge, and then... Studebaker.
Studebaker.
Oh, so it is the four.
Yeah, I think it's the Big Four. You didn't watch the movie? It's about the catalytic... The suppression of the creation of the catalytic converter because the Big Four did not want to admit that cars were polluting the environment. But that is very much in the background and is an excellent film noir in the tradition of, say, the Easy Rollins character of Walter Mosley's books, which Don Cheadle was in the sole Easy Rollins adaptation of Devil in a Blue Dress, starring Denzel Washington back in, is that 95 or 96? Have you ever seen Devil in a Blue Dress?
No.
Oh, we have it on Blu-ray. Excellent movie.
Okay. Is that all? So now we're moving on to your favorite releases for June.
June 2021 is in the can, and the top 5 films I have to recommend if you haven't had the chance to see them. Undina, directed by Christian Petzold, which we did cover. Tova, actually almost all of these are names. Tova, directed by Zaida Bergeroth, who I got to interview several months ago because Tova was Finland's Oscar submission. It's about the very out-of-the-box writer Tove Jansson, which is really worth checking out. Gaia, South African film from Jaco Bauer, which you also saw and we covered. Kind of a simmering eco thriller. I Carry You With Me, which you did not see, from Heidi Ewing, who I didn't realize it when I mentioned it last week. She directed that series we covered, Love Fraud.
Oh.
Anyway, and then last but not least, which might be in my top 10 of the year, come the end of the year, is Zola, directed by Janixa Bravo, which got a theatrical release June 30th. So just makes our cutoff for this list. Taylor Page and Riley Keough and Coleman Domingo. I think in my review I called it, it's kind of a unicorn of a film. Just original and fun and creepy.
Nice. Okay, for today's topic, you came up with the idea of talking about critics. Specifically, you sent me like a headline about what makes a critic.
Well, there was I had noticed an article published on Vox by Carlos Aguilar, and I think in conjunction of conversations we've had based on the feedback we've received for our review on The Tomorrow War, starring Chris Pratt, which opened today, and this Vox article was who gets to be a critic. I've always been, everybody's a critic. You can critique the critics. If you have an opinion, you're a critic. It's just all about who's taken seriously, who gets to be part of the cultural conversation that can, maybe steer or cause an evolution of how something is received by the public. That with it there's potentially a semblance of power for those that are looking for that. For somebody that has been writing as a film critic, press journalist for a decade, it's more about access and, But what I was struck by Mr. Aguilar's article is about, the lack of perspective, and as a queer person, how my approach to it was also similar to his. It's probably very unrealistic that this will ever be anything for me, or I will ever have a modicum of success as this, and that kind of imposter syndrome about how I will never measure up. So there were some triggering things about reading that article, and then in conjunction with kind of the, little backlash we get because we've been called, in response to disliking The Tomorrow War, despite not bringing up Chris Pratt's religion or even saying that we don't like Chris Pratt in general, because that's not the case. It's a terrible movie. Being called heterophobes.
Well, let me interrupt here because since I'm the one who manages the YouTube page and I see you don't see any of the negative comments because I generally delete them.
You left some up on that one.
Well, because I don't mind criticism, like people providing like differing opinions.
Sure.
So I don't delete those because I think they're valid. Like just how I'm having an opinion about something, I appreciate that people took the time to watch something and then say that they don't agree for various reasons. So I don't delete everything, but when they're just sort of like nasty derogatory comments, I do just block the person from the channel. So that being said, what I find very interesting and what I'm sure many people will find interesting who watch our videos is the overwhelming majority of the nasty comments we receive are related to us having a negative opinion about whiteness.
Yeah.
Generally a white male.
Casey Affleck.
Specifically, that was a big one. But yeah, anything featuring white characters, or us specifically saying we don't like sort of like acts of whiteness, as it were, or a white male actor, we get a lot of really nasty comments. Which is interesting because conversely, we have over 500 videos, so we've watched a lot of movies, and there have been movies featuring actors, people of color, ethnic themes, whatnot, and we've also not liked those films. And in general, the criticism we receive is more constructive,
Yeah.
more substantiated, more respectful. But when it's about white folks,
Oh yeah.
it's off the chain.
Somebody said something about how snowflakes don't like Chris Pratt, or something, like disregarding us as snowflakes, and I wonder if it's.
I don't even know what that means.
I was assuming they meant it as like a derogatory euphemism for homosexuals, but I think snowflake is also something that they call a black person who only sleeps with white men.
I've never heard that.
I've heard that, and that's what people used to say that in Minneapolis. That's where I found out about it.
I thought that. Well, I don't know the comment you're referring to, but I was going to say that I think, what makes a critic. We didn't really talk about the topic before we started this podcast, but we have quite a bit of time to talk. So I think I want to say that I want to back up and say that when I think about what it means to be educated, I think it means like how to decipher the truth, when to know how to seek out information, to substantiate our beliefs, to verify. And I find it very interesting that people seek out information, i.e. a YouTube video, about a topic they're interested in or curious about, and they want to argue and be mad about a differing opinion. And I just find it so interesting because I think like, okay, if you just love Chris Pratt, no matter what he does, it's just the greatest thing ever. It's a 10 out of 10 movie. Why are you on the internet seeking out opinions that could differ from yours and inflame you? And my thought is that they think they want to troll those people, and somehow they're like Captain Save-A-Hoeing their fave, which I think is so lame. Because if you think Chris Pratt is at home thanking you in his mind for trolling people who didn't like his performance, you're mistaken. And it's just a very sort of like loser thing to do, I think, in general. To spend that amount of time on the internet wanting to like be negative towards people who don't share the same views you do.
Well, it's being a bully. You're bullying people. Like to say I'm a heterophobe because I don't like a movie starring this white stud. I mean, come on. But that is also constructive criticism. It's not.
But moving on from what I think I was trying to say is, or moving on to what I think I was trying to say is, if you ask me, do I think I'm a critic? No. Because my knowledge of the subject matter I'm talking about is minimal. I think what validates me as having a voice is that I think I just represent like the average person who's expected, like a consumer. So cinema is a product that we consume. We are expected to spend our hard-earned money to stream or go to a movie theater and buy these expensive-ass concessions on products that filmmakers and studios have doled out to us. And I think that we as consumers have every right to give our opinion on products that we're expected to spend money on. So I think that in that regard, I'm totally in my right to give my review of a film.
Well, I think...
But I don't have the background or the cinematic knowledge you do, so I don't necessarily... So my reactions are generally like, I sat for 90 minutes and watched this thing, and this is how I felt about it.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you... there aren't a lot of so-called critics that I think even have the kind of knowledge or passion that I do for watching what I've watched. So I don't think that's what makes a film critic, though. I think that makes a cinephile or an aficionado. But I would say that I disagree. I think you classify as a critic.
But this is what this is where the two things I'm talking about come together, about what educated means and seeking out the truth, and then what a critic is. Where they come together is, if someone watches our YouTube videos, I'm assuming they do it because they really appreciate your knowledge of cinema and they like your insights, and oftentimes people comment that they discover new things because they listen to you go on. And I think people probably find me amusing, and they think that my perspective is maybe similar to theirs, which really excites me that there are particularly trans and queer people of color who think that maybe we have similar opinions. So that makes me very excited. Like, oh, there are other people out there who think that maybe like we have similar thoughts and we would be aligned on a lot of topics. So people who are choosing to watch us are doing so because they think that our opinions are entertaining, but also would align with their taste and interest. And that's where I think it's like you're making an educated choice. So the people who like watching our YouTube videos, and the few that are listening to this podcast, they are making an educated choice to do so. And I think it's the educated choice that makes the individual, like the subject, so us, then that would qualify us as a critic, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's subjective. I'm not... So then I was thinking, okay, so... And I know I've gotten in trouble for saying this before, but whatever. I think it's like when I think about the average film critic, so let's say like a 27-year-old straight white guy who probably has like a conservative background, and then he's talking about stories in films, and talking about how this is weird, they didn't like that, they didn't like the style of this. And it's like, well, yeah, with your background and your taste and interest, you wouldn't. And it's not to say that Kyle, who lives in Idaho, who's reviewing, a Tyler Perry movie, it's not that he can't have his opinion, because there are many people who share his perspective, his POV. What I'm saying is there should be other voices that represent other POVs, so that people can make educated choices as to who they want to listen to. So, bringing it back to what you started with about the Tomorrow War, which I didn't, that video is getting views and people don't like what we had to say. And I think it's just like, well, are you making an educated choice? People love to make derogatory comments about our sexuality. Why are you clicking play on two faggots talking about a movie that you're going to be offended by? Like, right. To me, it just baffles my mind. You don't like gay people. And
then try to demean us as a way to shame us into getting in line and agreeing with everyone else.
I should be able to have a voice, and I think it's because there aren't as many others who have a voice. I think it's important for all of us to get out there and say something. Because if we all said something, I bet the sort of narrative would adjust swiftly. Yeah. Meaning that someone like Chris Pratt would be given the opportunity to executive produce and star in this shitty-ass big-budget action movie. If everyone had an opinion, if every black and brown person had an opinion, if every person who doesn't watch NASCAR or doesn't, smoke weed. I'm just thinking of every type of person. If everyone had a voice, what would stories look like that are considered mainstream?
Well, the critical body, as in like the major publications, who is writing, who is influencing, the cat's gonna jump. Are white men. It's a lot of white gay men too, but it does not reflect the diversity of the population or even what's, being offered up cinematically. Because they don't want to talk about the problem. The bottleneck effect there then is they don't want to talk about things they're uncomfortable with, i.e., black shit. So, and that furthermore, that's reflected in the historically in the body of what's voted for at the Academy Awards. Like the black things that are awarded or are nominated are slave narratives, because white people are comfortable talking about slave narratives because they like to think we're distanced enough from that to where it's comfortable to talk about that, and everything else is kind of like, oh, I don't know what to say. I lost my train of thought. But did you read the article?
No.
Okay, so
enlighten us.
Of course not. But a case in point was Spike Lee's Bamboozled, which recently had a Criterion release that we reviewed, and I have fond memories. The first time I watched Bamboozled, you and I had a Spike Lee triple feature, which I'm sure you don't remember because this was 2008. It was Inside Man, Bamboozled, and School Days. Anyhow, about how because that came out in 2000, so all of the major people writing about it were white men and women, and were very, very dismissive to it. And now that Criterion has kind of, in this restoration of it, has allowed for a new critical consensus in talking about how prescient Bamboozled was, I think was a great example for this author to bring up in this article. But also just, and I think this relates back to Silky Ganache even, is just respecting that the world is not for you and all your own, and that there are other perspectives. And if you are privileged enough to for an other, a person of color, a queer person, a trans person, to be vulnerable in front of you, to respect that they have a different perspective and a different worldview, and it's maybe there's something that you're not seeing, and maybe it broadens your own horizons. That's supposed to be the excitement. And whatever last podcast we talked, being curious about other people. It's about being curious. It's not if you're a straight white dude and everybody else that's not is saying that this is shit, shouldn't it make you well, what are they seeing that I'm not? Like, doesn't it make you curious instead of just shutting down the conversation and saying, like, that's like telling a black person that's criticizing something about reverse racism, we're not being heterophobic by not liking something that's heteronormative. That is not how the mechanism works.
Right.
But anyhow.
Oh, that's a lot to take in.
Oh, so were you listening to my diatribe?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look over at you and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, no, because I'm having to listen to you, obviously. I'm not just thinking how I'm going to respond. I'm, listening.
Sure.
But no, the topic's big. I think it's just an interesting thing. And I've talked about this before as someone who never felt like they had a voice for all of my life. Just feeling so insecure and othered and all the things. And then all of a sudden deciding I'm going to start making videos and posting them on YouTube, and then getting feedback, and a lot of it has been positive, and a lot of it, even when it's not positive, it's like, oh, I feel seen. Like, people get, my sense of humor, and that feels great, or just the fact that people even find me moderately amusing, even though it may be that I'm just a clown, it still feels like refreshing. Mm-hmm. But to that, and I also want to be clear that the trollish comments people make don't upset me per se. I just find them fascinating. So for anyone who would hear this and think like, yeah, I got him, you really didn't.
Hey, I'm still paying my bills and I'm comfortable. So don't.
And I don't want to minimize people who get bullied and aren't able to manage it well.
No,
but I'm certainly not one of those people. I'm too old. I'm too fly. I
think that's the thing. At a certain point in my life, up until probably my early 20s, that kind of if I put myself out in the world as I am now, and that is the response, even if it's just a small percentage of the response, even if the overwhelming response I received was positive, as it is now, that probably would have bothered me enough to shut me down, and that is the power you give them by letting them do that. So I think if anybody's listening to this, it's not as easy as like it gets better, but it's just like you just got to tune that shit out. But also respond to it. It's the thing about Michelle Obama's when they go low, we go high. If you have the ability to do so, if you're in survival mode, you don't have the ability to go high all the time. Sometimes things have to get down and dirty. So, this conversation is coming from a place of privilege in that fact that we aren't actually ever can be affected by...
we don't have to engage anyone. So I respect that, but I think getting back to like the idea of being a critic, I'm hesitant to think that I am because
we've been conditioned to think that being a critic means and looks a certain thing, and you're
not... that, but also I do think there's some validity into like there needs to be some level of expertise. Do I think that I have a level of expertise? Excuse me.
I would argue yes.
At this point, I certainly watch more movies than the average person. I certainly spend more time talking about movies than the average person. So do I think that I am positioned to speak about film?
Yes.
Some may argue not very eloquently, but I've done it enough that I feel comfortable doing it. But it doesn't matter whether or not I'm an expert. I think going back to the educated choices, I don't make myself a critic. It's people who value my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because even before we started making the YouTube videos, people would ask me, like people who knew me, I could see that they wanted my take on things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I can't wait to hear what you think about this and that. So it's like, whether they thought, oh, I do a really good job of selling a movie I like, or I do a good job of making fun of a movie I don't like, it was those people's thoughts on my opinions that made me feel valid.
Mm-hmm.
So me just saying I'm a critic, it's not for me to say I'm a critic, it's for anyone who wants to hear the words I'm saying, who are the ones who make me a critic.
Okay.
I think.
Well, don't you feel... I feel like since we started doing the YouTube channel, I feel like I've seen you kind of blossom into that as well. Like, you take notes. You brought a note to the theater. Or a notebook to the theater. You do take it seriously in a way... as in you want your thoughts to be heard. And to me, that's being a critic.
I think, to me, I feel like, oh, I'm an asshole who makes YouTube videos about movies. So to me, like... I
don't think that's...
I would describe myself that way. I wouldn't say, like, I'm a film critic. I think if we ever got to a level where we're being sought out to review things, and then it's like, okay, well, then sure. I mean, if you have to call me something. But I think there's a level of expertise and that I don't necessarily have, but I kind of do. But like you said initially, we all are critics. Like if you have an opinion, you're a critic.
Yeah. And you don't need all that back. Like I know that I ramble on and sound like an encyclopedia about film, but you don't need that.
I've been to many screenings in LA. Mm-hmm. And they're always filled with critics. Like usually they're press screenings, so yeah. I go because I tag along with you. And they're a certain group of people. Yeah. They are generally pretentious, in my opinion. Yeah. Not usually attractive people. They think that they're... Well, I'm just, I have eyes. So, they're kind of like crunchy people who think that like they're like the tastemakers and I don't like that vibe. I don't like this vibe that like my opinion matters. No, my opinion, all of our opinions matter, but it's like, oh, so you think you're gonna make or break something. No, I don't think that when I get on like in front of the camera and say I hated this movie that I'm trying to destroy it. I'm just saying that if you expect me to spend my little $20 on my one Saturday night free to go do something with my girlfriend or my best friend or my brother, I should have a right to say, like, this was crap. I didn't like it. In the same way that if you went to TGI Fridays and bought your little surf and turf for $20, I don't know what people pay at TGI Fridays, and you didn't like it, you would ask the server to take it back because you're not happy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why when it comes to things like film, people seem so unreasonable accepting the fact that there are people who did not enjoy their purchase. Mm-hmm. Because if you bought a t-shirt at H&M that you wore out one night and then tried to return the next day and claimed that it didn't fit you well, like you don't have a problem doing that. Mm-hmm. You don't have a problem complaining that you know, the sour cream on your Chipotle burrito was warm, but somehow someone saying they don't like something that has an actor you like is just unacceptable.
Right. Well, I love that in our review, neither of us brought up his religion, and that is what a lot of comments are about, which I find fascinating. Like they were.
It means that people are on edge. Like people just want to be fired up, which I find amusing. I find it amusing. Like, do they not have anything better to do?
Over Chris Pratt. Like,
do they not have anything better to do? This is it's all meant to be entertainment, right? I just want,
like, are you voting in your local elections, people? Like, who cares about
why
Chris
are
Pratt?
you, like, crusading for Chris Pratt?
In the Tomorrow War.
And really exchange Chris Pratt with any actor who
right.
people just feel so passionate about. And I always say this, too. Everyone knows my fave is Janet Jackson. I know she's not the best singer, the best dancer, the best anything. But to me, she is. Do you think I have ever gone on the internet and tried to look up a review of anything she's done? Of course not.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It matters what you think.
It matters what I think. And again, it's like knowing when to seek out information is real, and how to seek it out is the mark of an educated person. Not a degree, not an alma mater. It's like, is this how you're choosing to spend your time? Is to seek out information that will inflame you over something that you know you already have a strong opinion about? What is the purpose of wasting your time if there's no curiosity, no value in no entertainment value associated with it? It's just you really spending hours on the interwebs wanting to engage people to argue about someone who Chris Pratt could care less if you live or die. For anyone out there who's mad about whatever I said about Chris Pratt's new movie, he could care less whether you live or die. And you're on Beyonce's internet making nasty comments to two people you also don't know, who, at least for myself, I can say, I also don't care whether you live or die. And you want to argue about this. It makes no sense. Suck a dick. Start a business. You know, like, enjoy your life.
Okay, T.S. Madison.
Yeah. Shout out to T.S. Madison. Shout out to T.S. Madison.
I don't know. I think it's important to. I think it's just the importance of authenticity.
The importance of being earnest.
The importance of being earnest. Oscar Wilde's and some bun burying for you. I am not a part of the majority culture, and nor do I want to be. And my perspective will be completely informed by that. And what I'm there to clock, I will, as I am able to. As a white person, obviously, I have racial blind spots, but we can all try to get better. And I don't know. I just find it so fascinating to think that, like, it's as if the fear of, if these films go away, because films are a reflection of our culture. Like they reflect the normalcy we're supposed to see, and I think there's this fear, if that goes away, then that's kind of the last stand almost.
I would say that I think if I had to accept, like, the critic moniker, I only would do so because I feel like it's so important for others to have a voice and for people to feel like there's someone who represents them, even in the tiniest portion, more, and is looking out for their interests. A lot of the time, my criticism is based on gender and race and sexuality. From my perspective, like, I am a queer, brown, cis man. Like, so a lot of things don't appeal to me. And for people out there who feel a kinship with that, then my opinion has value. And if you don't like people like me, then what are you doing watching me? You seem obsessed, bro. Like, what? I find it very strange that, like, I mean, just based off of their language and their avatars, it's like, so these, like, straight guys seem so inflamed by us, and it just kind of seems odd.
I think it's
I wonder, are you just more curious? Like,
it's a tactic to shut us down, to make people. That's a tactic to make people want to give up. It goes back to, like, bullying in school. They don't want to see. It's the dread of difference.
And the good thing about being someone who has experienced a lot of bullying in their life is hopefully as we age, we learn how to withstand it and grow, which I certainly have. So it's like,
well, I mean,
all this does is make me want to be even more salty about certain things.
But it's just, you know what? Like, looking back on the angst of my childhood and teenage years, I'm glad I went through it, because that made me stronger than ever. And you know, you see all these people. That's why you saw, like, during the pandemic, all these white people throwing temper tantrums in CVS and shit. It's because they've never been told no. Like, you know, to have had many doors shut in my face just because of something I can't help, and have as a white person, have had other doors open for me for something I can't help in ways that I didn't even realize, obviously, at the time. But you know. That going through those traumas makes you a resilient person, and
agreed.
The resilient will conquer the earth.
Yeah.
If there's anything left to conquer. So, anyhow.
Well, we can wrap up. You need to get a good night's sleep. You have a long day of travel
Well,
tomorrow.
no, I wanted to watch Snow White: A Tale of Terror with Sigourney Weaver. We watched Isabelle Huppert in White as Snow, which we have a review for coming out soon.
But that can't come out till August, I think.
But
I was disappointed with the film.
I was too.
Spoiler
Love
alert.
Isabelle, but
Isabelle looks fantastic.
But it left us. Joseph had forgotten
wanting.
It
left me wanting.
Sigourney Weaver in 1997's Snow White: A Tale of Terror, for which she received a SAG and Emmy Award nomination.
Oh. Invite. She received an invitation.
She was there. Also starring Gil Bellows and Monica Keena and Sam Neill. So even if we just started, I've already had one glass of wine, and I hope to sail this into the evening on the backs of Sigourney singing whatever song that's called that she's singing in that movie.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, because what time is it right now?
9:30.
Oh, it's 9:30 at 9:30 Pacific Standard Time, and you need to be at the airport at 8, which means we need to get up at like 7.
Yeah, perfect.
You're gonna get up at 7?
Yeah, I get up at 7 every day.
No. Oh, okay. We have a few minutes. We're gonna get into this.
Okay. Give me another glass of wine.
Are you going to lie to the people and say that you get up at 7 every morning?
I get up at 7, I sign on to things I need to sign on to, and then sometimes
Well, don't say too much, but what I will say is so let me rephrase this. You struggle to get up in the morning.
Once I have the first pot of coffee, I'm fine.
Oh my God. That's another issue.
I'm a night owl. That's when I write. That's when I write poetry and talk to myself.
I'm an early bird. I do not like being up late at all.
True.
And I also, I have an aversion to people who cannot get up in the morning. I struggle with that. I struggle with people who come into work dragging.
I don't come into work dragging.
I'm not implying you do. I'm just saying that that's usually the experience. When I say that I have an aversion, it's like, because I've had many positions where I worked earlier in the day, like I would start work at 7. So people who would drag themselves in at 7, and it's like they don't want to be bothered until they have their first cup of coffee, drives me.
Oh, see, no, I've never liked that.
Because I think as an adult, it's like, okay, first of all, science has shown that we need X amount of hours for sleep. Yes. And getting less than that is carcinogenic. And also, you just look like shit when you don't get enough sleep. So that's one thing. Number 2, if you know you need to be up at 6 a.m. and you need to get at least 7 hours sleep, then math would dictate that you should be in bed by 11. And there are a lot of people out there who don't want to do what's best for their day, and that drives me crazy. Also, like, I used to have trouble sleeping, and I've done more than one sleep study, and I've taken sleep hygiene courses, and it is very important to have a routine. And I think this idea that, like, I'm a night owl is like, you're making yourself.
Oh, so you're just throwing me under the bus. No. I am more productive at night.
No, I'm not applying
creatively.
I'm not saying you're not more productive. What I'm saying is that you don't have, like, people can't adjust their sleep patterns to something that's more natural.
That was the cat, not me.
That's the cat. So saying that a person can't go to bed early or can't wake up early is their own doing. Like, you could slowly adjust so that a person could go to bed at 11 and wake up at 7.
Did you hear me say I can't?
I'm not talking about you.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about
sleep.
Okay. Well, but as you are apt to do,
talking to the world. Okay.
You make everything. Well, I am making a podcast, so I am talking to the world.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, getting back to tomorrow, you have to get up at 7.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
we get to the airport at 8. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you're going to stay up till 2 in the morning tonight.
No, probably midnight. But because I be prepared. Anyhow, do you have any final thoughts after your lecture?
So for next week, next week's podcast, you'll still be in France. So I'm not sure how we'll do that. Maybe we'll come up with an idea. Maybe we'll try to do something over like telephone and record it. Maybe I'll have a special guest do a podcast with me. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who that would be. And then I think I might even try to record a video for a YouTube channel by myself.
As you should.
So we'll see how that goes.
Swimmingly, I'm sure.
Because we would only have, I think, one video over the next 2 weeks if I don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. We're also planning on maybe recording a couple of Zoom calls while you're in France to kind of get a rundown of what you've been up to. Maybe share some photos of the Palais?
The Palais.
Yeah, maybe you can take some photos or videos and share them so I can put them in the video. So that might be fun. People seem to... I had posted something on YouTube about that. Mm-hmm. People seemed interested in you sharing, like, your trip while you're there. So that might be coming down the pike. We did Whole30.
Yeah, again. Feel great. I need a belt on my jeans now.
I went to the doctor and I had lost 13 pounds. So that was interesting.
C'est bon.
Yeah, I'll gain them all back in the next... No, I usually lose weight when you're gone because I eat less when you're not around.
So, thanks.
But mainly because I refuse to prepare food.
That's true. I spent a lot of time today food prepping for you.
You did, and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you can sign off.
Oh, I had a final quote to leave the people with.
Well, you have 120 seconds.
Fascism is capitalism plus murder.
Great.
From Upton Sinclair, author of The Jungle. Not Sinclair Lewis, Upton Sinclair. Sinclair Lewis wrote Main Street. Anyhow, c'est bon.
Bye.
Huh.